because I was fighting the rice and it's not completely done, so I have to go check on them.
Fighting the rice.
I mean,
Yeah.
look, man, they're tiny, but he's wildly outnumbered. So
I am.
yeah, there's got to be a million of them in there.
I wanted to make him in a different way that I've done before. That was really tasty, but it's more tricky than just using the rice cooker.
What did you do? Just stick it on a pot or something with water instead? I mean, there's not that many ways of cooking rice.
I cook some meat in a pan, then some aromatics like garlic and ginger, and then some onion, and then cook the rice and butter with that, and then chicken stock. And then it's supposed to be done after like 20 minutes, but it's not done.
I do something similar with that with when I make Spanish rice. Cook it in a skillet like that, and it always takes longer than I expect, but whatever. I don't expect it to be timely. It's rice. And this is a preview of the cooking podcast that Andreas is going to start up called Making Filler with Broken Jars. You're on a good route. Yes, you have a book. You can do things that aren't lettuce pizza. You're going to report back, and we're going to judge you on it. This is going to be great.
Right.
Yeah, we'll see about that.
I'd take a few more pictures, and we'll just judge you on literally everything and give you some scores, and you can try to improve. This is a perfect plan.
Yep, perfect plan.
We will judge you on the cleanliness of your stove as well. Of course we will.
Oh,
is that a thing?
Don't do that.
Like, I get it if it's a messy room, but like your kitchen is supposed to be dirty while it's in progress, right? Like spills happen and stuff.
Progress, maybe. I don't know. I mean, it's always a disaster after I leave the kitchen, but it's like I know I could have done better.
I was going to say, it sounds like somebody's never had a fight with flour before, but...
Oh, I guess I haven't lost a fight with flour in a long time.
I wouldn't admit to losing either. Certainly not live on the air, but you know.
See, it's the powdered sugar when I'm trying to make buttercream that usually gets to me, because I put it in when I'm trying the bowl, and I'm trying to start mixing it, and it just poofs everywhere. And then
I have to start it really slowly, or put the cover on.
Yeah,
I've poofed myself. My friend was like, "Damn, dude, you're at a party."
The hookers and blow that Justin was talking about last week.
Exactly.
Always.
All right. Are you ready to be serious now?
Never.
Yeah. You have mistaken us with a different podcast, clearly. So
yeah. Well, I guess we had a moment of professionalism with J Ray, so now it's just like we could do that again, can't we? Probably not.
I mean, could we? Yes. Will we? Probably not.
Doubtful.
I mean, I too have been known to clean up and be professional every now and again, but it's Saturday. Why would I do that to myself? This is my time, you know.
So, continuing with the second guesses, we've gotten through changes. Now we can start examining Ghost Story and onwards. And the biggest thing of Ghost Story is kind of the reveal of the decision he made and changes that we kind of talked about. And that's why it's not a decision for Ghost Story, is he was being manipulated by a fallen angel, and that's why he had to kill himself, sort of. It's like the most impactful choice of that story, and yet it wasn't exactly his, because, yeah, Lashiel in the shadows and all that.
And it wasn't in that story.
Sort of. Yeah. That's where it gets, with Ghost Story, it gets weird, because it is in Changes, it is in Ghost Story, and not in the other at the same time.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah, probably the most impactful thing, and I'm channeling EG a little bit, so you're welcome. It's like whether or not he helps the kids. Like, I think he could have just, you know, not helped the kids would have been fine, but that's probably that's probably as much Fort Hill's problem as, you know, Harry's, because like Harry mostly just like he mostly gets involved ultimately when like Fort Hill gets involved, right? Like,
well, not quite. So Fitz and what's his face, they went and shot at Murphy's house.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
So then,
so that's when he followed him. Yeah, yeah. It's still stupid, but okay. Yeah. He does kind of get pulled into that one. So
yeah.
Yep.
I mean, I guess Dresden's first real good choice was going to Mortimer.
Yes.
You're going to go back as a ghost. Who do you talk to? Well, you go talk to the person you can talk to ghosts. It's the very logical. It made perfect sense. He wasn't being an idiot about it, although past idiocy had made Lindquist go like, no, I'm not dealing with you. I'm going to go have an Oreo.
Right.
Understandable.
Just a single Oreo, though, because he's learned
because
self-control.
Lindquist has lost weight, and he's like,
taking care of himself.
Yeah. No, it's wildly revealing character moment all the way around, right? Because he's lost weight, he's serious about it, but he's also human, and so he keeps it there, for those rare moments, but he restricts himself to one. That's a level of willpower I don't think I've ever mastered. So,
that one's a bit hard, but it's so funny to me, like when Harry Dresden shows up on your doorstep, or Harry didn't even do this when Morgan showed up on his doorstep. It was like, hide me, they're coming for me and all that. He didn't have any outlet to deal with his frustrations. He had a massive headache instead, literally. But like, he's okay, I have this overwhelming emotion I cannot control. I'm going to solve it with sugar, which is what so many of us do.
Sure. But, also true.
Yeah. And it was so interesting, just as an aside, to get to see Lindquist actually be as powerful as he was in that beginning because of all of the wraiths that he had around, and like binding them to him to get their skills as he needs, because he is an ectomancer and Dresden doesn't know shit about that.
Yeah. But he's not binding them though, right? Like it's more mutually beneficial kind of,
yes.
like, yeah, like it's a kind of thing. It's a kind of thing that we don't see in a lot of fantasy, right? Because sorcerers are traditionally spirit binders and that sort of thing, right? They do get their magical powers more or less from summoning and conjuring spirits traditionally, but that obviously can vary author to author and whatever. And so like Mortimer could, qualify as that, but he really is like more of like he negotiates with them. Like certainly he compels Dresden to get out of his body, and certainly he's got ghost dust and all of that stuff to secure his certain rooms in his house, and like he can, use his power against them. But for the most part, it's like he's a ghost therapist almost, where it's totally just like, yeah, you should really cross over. Ah, shit, you've been dead for a couple hundred years. Your unfinished business is probably not going to get finished. I got some bad news about that,
and then kind of like a warden, ghost warden as well. I guess like the ones that are like, what is it they're called? The bad ghosts,
the lectors or whatever. The lector specters, yeah,
lector specters that he like takes in so they don't go out and hurt people.
Sure. Yeah, and so it's interesting because it's also an important foil to the necromancers that we've seen, because the necromancers are absolutely about compelling and using, spirits, and we see that again later in this book too. So so that's just why it's like, yeah, he could certainly, but I think that probably is where it starts to cross over more into necromancy than just just whatever he does, which they call ectomancy, which I feel like doesn't quite differentiate it. Ecto at least gives you like, yeah, okay, he's not dealing with bodies, he's not doing zombies or skeletons, he mostly just deals with ghosts and that sort of thing. But yeah, I don't know. So that's enough about Mort. Nobody cares. Just kidding. I thought it was great to see him like turn around, especially after Dresden kind of like the word that comes to mind is dressed down, but it's like admonished, maybe, something like that, where he like just kind of was like, hey man, pull yourself together. You could do better than this, So that's a decision that pays off.
He's had some cool character development over the series. So kind of want to check in with him again soon, hopefully. It's been a while.
He's got more ghosts to deal with too.
Yeah, well, part of the problem might be that we're starting to get outside of his, element of power. Like, well, we've got a Titan marching down Main Street. What's Mort going to bring to that? Like we've definitely moved on to where like even Dresden is out of his class, right? But he's the only one that can do certain things. Like Dresden's the only one that could bind her, so we kind of needed him. But we're definitely up in the like, tanks and high-powered vehicles area, and Mortimer is still kind of like, I'm really good with ghosts. Like she flattened 4 other godlings, so.
So I would say that the thing that Mortimer would do in a battle would not be actually to fight if he can avoid it, because he's a very intelligent coward, but he was very good at reconnaissance. And so exactly like what he done in Deadbeat, of where were the necromancers on the map, or where are the bad guys right now? How do we get out into safety? That's where I think he would shine very well.
Yeah. So I'm granted, that's a good point. It might have been interesting to see him get involved with Graceland, but again, he'd been up against real necromancers and like real badass necromancers. But then you also had Martha Liberty filling the reconnaissance role. So like, unless you got Mort in the background, it's not the more of Mort that we want, right? It would have been like, yes, he is still in Chicago and he is on screen. That's fantastic. But, but then we've got an actual White Council wizard and a senior council member at that. She's the one doing the actual,
Yeah. Like she can take over it with the war meeting at the top of the tower, but I would hope that Lindquist would be like gathering all of his neighbors and all of the people who don't know what's going on and helping them out, because the White Council can hold their own. It would be fun to see what was he doing off screen that we didn't get to see during Battleground Peace talks, and find out if he was probably holding himself well, because we see that he can now.
Yeah, I mean, I could definitely imagine that he's got his specters nearby, and at least his neighborhood might have been patrolled. Even if it's just like the Octakongs didn't come here because it was scary even for them, or something like that, like just like a simple kind of low magic thing. But yeah, you got to know, like there were definitely some neighborhoods that fared better than others, depending on where they were. Like I got to imagine Michael's neighborhood, even though the Angels are more or less relegated to his house and that sort of thing. Like, I mean, obviously they sent in the what were they, servitors, or what did they call them, the turtlenecks? They've got a more technical name, but
or turtlenecks works.
Yeah, so they sent them in, so that's obviously not working, but it's because those guys were mortal operatives, or at least mortal enough.
Right. Well, there's that, but I mean, that neighborhood is safe because Molly has 2 or 3 houses owned by Faye that are watching everything.
Yeah, which we now know, and like they still broke into the house, I think, right? But then they got taken out or something. So, like, anyway.
So Molly set up illusions, so the servitors had something to show for it, and they thought that they had done everything, and so that was Molly's trick of like, Mouse wasn't there. Of course, Mouse would be there. That's how he knew that it was an illusion.
Yeah,
isn't that
you forgot the dog?
That's in the last book, right?
Yeah.
We're just
wandering
around tangent.
Okay.
Right. Well, because we wanted to see more of Mort, and it's like, well, what was the latest book, and what would he have done? So anyway.
So back to Ghost Story.
Yes.
I feel like Ghost Story is where Dresden gets a little bit more wisdom, because he had the point of asking the fucking question of his fairy godmother of, say, who killed me? It's the thing that we've been waiting for him to do at various points, like whether it's kill him or what the hell's a Starborn or anything. There's so many things.
Straight up, just be like, okay, so no pussyfooting around. Here's the question: what's a Starborn?
Yeah, that, detective, is the correct question. So,
but I'm not allowed to answer you. So,
right.
There's a moment of like insight that he had to, like, oh, I can just ask. I don't have to struggle so much to get the information that everyone else has, and it smacks him down, and he only gets 3 true answers. Ha ha ha. But it's like still one of the best moments to say, what happens if the bad guy wins? She wins?
Right.
What happens?
Yeah.
Can you think of any other choices that Dresden actually made in Ghost Story that was something significant? Because a lot of it was he was a pawn put into position by Uriel. Go do the thing that you're going to do, which is going to heal a lot of people. It's going to heal Molly, and Murphy's going to start grieving, and Butters came more into his own. Mortimer was able to do more stuff. Sir Stuart got to move on to the in-between cop level. So like,
Yeah, it's one of those books where like Harry is generally competent, like, and that happens more and more later because being incompetent starts to get you killed, right? So like it is one of those because it's like I'm just thinking about like most of his things, right? Like he does the assault on magical Normandy, right, in this book. He goes toe to toe with the corpse taker. He literally wills himself back to life. That might have been like generally a bad idea, except that it was kind of the only way forward, right? So like again, like a lot of his decisions, if he hadn't made them the way that he did, would have been worse. Yeah, certainly as far as like the major ones go. But then it's Ghost Story. I don't know if I remember all of it. So
right. It's an interesting question of how much of it was his choices and how much of it was Uriel knowing what choices he's going to make, which kind of takes away some amount of the sense of free will. It's like, of course, Dresden's going to help Fitz and all of those outcast kids, because what else is he going to do? Of course, Fort Hill is going to go and try to save them, and leaving it up, like no matter what, either the kids are going to get help and he'll be fine, or they're going to get help and Fort Hill will be dead, but he's going to be taken care of, and he has that knowledge that they're making choices to move other people into position, but it's kind of taking away their choices as well because they have to do those things. He has to go save Fort Hill. He has to go save Fitz.
Right. Yeah, I don't know if Dresden's ones like his decisions are the more annoying ones because like I think the one that I remember being more mad about was Michael's kid Daniel, right? Where it's just like you're just kind of being an idiot. So
he's got like a huge chip on his shoulder,
right? Yeah, and yeah, I don't know. It's just a little. It's a little sad because I feel like it's a wasted moment. Like he very much could have had, a little bit of Robin. He could have had a little bit of needing to prove himself. He could have had a little bit of like, and maybe it was all of these things, but it was also like a couple of chapters in a book and just never touched on again, so at least as far as we've seen, like, that probably could have been or deserved its own side story unless we're just not using the character that way. So it's just another one of those things where it's like, yay, we got that moment, but now we're 3 or 4 books down the line and
okay. And now Daniel is out of the game as far as we can tell from the Carpenter house, and like I think there should have been probably a little bit more contention of like Molly is in a bad place in Ghost Story, like a really bad one, and now her next sibling is involved in the same game and it's dangerous and he gets hurt. And I feel like Michael and Charity, because could you stop doing this to my children?
Right. Yeah, but it's tough. Like, especially, Michael's literally a paladin, right? So it's like, he's going to sit down and be like, look, man, it is ultimately your choice, but I'm proud of you no matter what you choose. And it's like, you can't, I can't imagine growing up and seeing like your dad literally go fight demons and then you not want to follow suit. Yeah. The difference is you don't have his knowledge and training, and you don't have the self-awareness to realize that you're so completely outclassed. Like, Michael got a sword, kids. That's where most of that comes from. The sword balances out most of the hard stuff. But not only just that, he also got.
it makes them even, right? But Michael is an exceptional man. That's also why usually swords are not held by someone for very long. Him and Sanya and Shiro are, from what we understand, exceptions.
Well, and that's where I was going, is like, so it's not just that. He also got himself a wife who could spar with him for 20 years and make him armor, so even just with a sword, it's not like he's just like, oh man, I really hope the angel takes care of this one for me. He's putting in the work himself, whereas like Daniel just, all he brought was his hubris, where he's just like, I'm Michael's son, I'm going to make this work. And it's like, bro, you haven't done any of the training. You don't have any of the knowledge. You don't have the experience, like you're going to get your ass kicked is what you're going to get. So
there is Michael has a line in one of the early books where it's something like, I thought you were Harry's like, I thought you were letting God look out for you or something like that, and he's like, it seems selfish to let him do all the work or whatever it is. Right?
Right.
It's something like that.
My faith
Yeah.
protects me. My armor helps.
Yeah, I
Right.
think it's might be that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think those are both lines, and it definitely, mirrors a sentiment, which is, God helps those who help themselves. Like, you can't go to a tug of war and be like, all right, Jesus, take the wheel. Like you're going to have to put something into it, guys. So.
I think the most impactful choice of Ghost Story is from Colin Murphy, Jack Murphy, whatever his name is, because he decided to kind of sort of lie to Dresden in the beginning. Like, if you don't go back to Chicago, which is the thing that everyone needs him to do, 3 of your people will die. It's reasonable on a long enough time scale that he would have been there to save them. It's like he lied to Uriel and then hung up on him at the end. Yeah. And that probably, it's the most act of free will that was a small choice that got everything else moving. It just wasn't Dresden's choices.
Right.
Which is kind of, it's nice and it's fun in that way that it isn't everything is all about Harry. It is the whole world is moving around him. And it's the world that we're enjoying. It's not just one character.
Well, and I mean the big impact of Ghost Story is being able to see what Harry's choice is and what Harry as Harry has done to the world. Like Harry is a very massive object affecting all of those orbits, right? They got to make their own choices and that sort of thing, but they're making it in the lens of seeing Harry be a hero as well. And so when Harry, it's the same thing with Daniel, basically, right? Harry died. Molly and Murphy and a number of other people tried to step up into that and realize that they don't have his power and they don't have his knowledge and his experience. And they really wish that they had Harry back, and that's a big part of the story of Ghost Story, right? Is to show us that impact and to show Harry that impact, and maybe don't be so flippant with your life next time, types of stuff. There's no one answer, right? There's so many things that happen in Ghost Story, and there's so many like morals of the story, so to speak. But that's one of the big ones to me, is that like you just kind of see and be like, well, we lost our champion, we've got to do the best we can now, type of thing. And you see the people step into that. And then, people like Murphy, for example, because she knows that she's not all of those things, that's where she starts to have to call in favors she really wish she didn't have to. That's where she starts to have to ally with Marcone and the White Court and make the best of it, because, she's not Harry Dresden. She can't just like pummel people with snark and magic, so.
Well, she can do it a little bit.
Yeah.
Like the vampire in the beginning.
Right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know. Cold Days.
It's the best book in the series still.
Is it?
I think so.
The best?
I think
the
so.
Best? I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, I generally think they each one gets better, but I mean, I like Cold Days a lot.
It was a culmination of so many things. It was like really well paced. It had a lot of big, interesting characters, big problems, got a lot of information, things like that. It's part of it. I think why I love it so much is the pacing is really tight. We're doing this thing, we're now doing the action, and now we're getting information, and it's very streamlined. It's like a really well done movie.
Gotcha. Sure. Yeah. And I mean, yeah, I love those, like trying to remember what we just watched where we were talking about that. Oh, ironically, I think it was Prisoner of Azkaban. We're in the middle of a Harry Potter rewatch. And if I remember right, that's the one with the time travel. And it's like when you introduce time travel, you're really close to fucking it up just by having time travel involved. But it's actually such like a tightly written and tightly filmed story that it's like everything lines up where it needs to line up. And there's, by the end of it, you're like, oh, all of the answers are given and all of the threads have been resolved and that sort of thing, right? Including like such a well telegraphed misdirection with the whole Lupin and Sirius Black thing. So sorry to get off on a tangent, but like I felt like that needed to be justified rather than just me having a hot take. But like that movie is very well done, and I'm guessing that the story was equally well done. So I understand. Cold Days, that to you, Cold Days is very tightly well done.
Yes.
To me, I
think I don't enjoy any of the other ones. It's just that one felt it was so extremely polished in its execution.
Gotcha. And I think for me, like Cold Days is one of those where it's like, well, we answered 5 questions and asked 15 more. So it's like, yes. I mean, I kind of enjoy that, but it can be quite frustrating at the same time. Be like, oh, now you know that the gates are a real place. And here's like 5 other things that you need to know that you're probably not going to find
Starborn, out. And I'm not asking this, like, that's the most important, like, frustrating thing at the end. It's like he gets called Starborn like 4 times.
Right.
It's 10 minutes. It's like, hey, why are you calling me that?
Right. Yeah. So, okay. So biggest important decision that Harry makes in the book is not asking the fucking question. We all know what that is because we mention it like every show. Come on, Harry. Yeah.
True.
I mean, I guess in some ways, again, the biggest impactful choices are not probably his because it's Mab gave him the order to kill Maeve. And then he takes the difficult route to get there. Maeve is choosing to work with Nemesis instead of be true to what she is as a Queen of Fairy. And yeah, and then there's now he's eating because he's made dinner.
Yeah. Of course.
I'm hungry.
So. Yeah, I mean, I don't buy that entirely, right? Because Dresden does make a ton of choices, and we're dealing with the Fae. They can't compel him, right? He's got to make his own choices. But again, like I feel like he generally chose right. We could start with the whole beginning and just the like, I don't know, the some of the first impactful stuff other than just surviving, the first few chapters is going to his birthday party and deciding to smash a couple of she-sickles. And so it's like, yeah, I don't really have a disagreement there. That's kind of the tact you need to take with Winter. Like he's generally a smartass with Cat Sith and Mab and everybody around him until he gets dumped into Chicago. Yeah, those are all, that's pretty much him. Like at the end, I remember being blown away by the ending. I know skipping quite a bit, but like the one that comes to mind is, sneaking through the portal naked or the barrier naked, because that's pretty much your only choice. He has his kerfuffle with the Summer Knight, but then summoning Mab. He's like, wait a minute, this is a circle, Mab, and you're like, oh. Fuck, that's a thing we could do.
Waiting for, and she was just like, "How it took you so long to get that idea."
You could just say something once in a while. You plan for him to summon you.
You could just imagine Mab is sitting there in her throne room, being like, "Harry Dresden,
Harry don't bother me with this shit. I'm waiting for a call."
Right? Yeah. Like, come on, Harry. I'm willing you to do it. I want you to do it. Call me in. But yeah, so again,
put me in, coach.
Right. Obviously the right decision. Bringing his people, yes or no, kind of problematic with the whole Murphy killed. Who did she kill? Lily, right? Or
Murphy actually killed Maeve.
She killed Maeve.
Maeve killed Lily. And then
that's right.
The summer mantle went into Sarissa, taking her away from Winter, and Maeve thought she was then safe. And when she was about to shoot Harry, Murphy shot Maeve because Mab allowed her to move because ice was no longer holding her hands solid. And then, then everything else happened.
Right. Yeah. So you got that. I mean, I guess going back a little bit, you've got him calling on Titania was, not necessarily stupid, but it was kind of a Harry thing to do where it's like, I'm sorry about that thing a couple of years back and you're probably still totally pissed at me, but I got to talk to you, he just generally talked to the right people and got the information he needed. So
Yeah, I guess that's the big thing is that he is starting to realize how much he doesn't know, and he's wanting to talk to people who are more knowledgeable than him and wiser. And that's a lot of what he does in this book. He talks to Vadarung, he talks to Rashid, he talks to the mothers, he talks to Titania. He doesn't talk to Mab after the beginning because she already gave the orders.
right.
But like part of it is he doesn't feel capable of dealing with this gigantic problem, and he's looking for someone to help save him. And they all have to say,
Right.
"You are the help. There is no one else. It is your
Right.
island." But that's, I mean, because he was smart enough to ask questions, he got a
Except
whole
for
bunch
the
of
one.
information. Yeah, the big one.
Right. He's on the job. He can't ask personal questions right now. So, but yeah, so I mean that's kind of the biggest one that comes to mind, I guess, is the whole, not asking that question, because I feel like he generally handles everything else well, up to the point where he gets the faux fight with, with Vadarung and the Earl King and takes over the hunt. They were
Yeah.
like, we're going to kill you. And he's like, punches him. And he's like, oh no, my glass jaw. Oh, you've taken over the wild hunt. That's terrible. It's exactly what we planned the whole time.
Yes, that is what they
What a
planned.
turn of events.
Yeah,
It is still
right.
a choice that he made the correct one: join, hide, or die.
Right.
And he took it instead. So it's
Right.
he didn't try to hide. Running away doesn't work. And it was
Right.
join and take over and show that you're the biggest boss in town and you get to deserve that. Or do the other choices. And so like it was a small choice. They did set it up for him to get the idea after they gave him a ton of other like hints of like, hey, go do this thing. I'm gonna beat you over the head with it.
Right. Like the Earl King lays down behind Santa Claus and Harry pushes him and he trips over and it's like, oh no, I fell down, like
Yeah. But it was a choice and he made the right one. It was a good one.
right. They listen to Gary. This is the one with the boats, right? So
Boats.
Boats.
Yeah. So I mean, again, generally competent, generally works out. So
mm-hmm. It's a lot of moving pieces that come together extremely well. Some of it being his choices, kind of like what Mab was trying to point out at the end of Molly got put into this position, not just because of Mab scheming, but also because of how Harry chose to treat her throughout the time and encourage her in those different ways. Like those choices do have ramifications, and part of that leads to her not being the Winter Lady. It's not everything is just the gigantic quest level choice of do you go left or right and doing these things. It's the small ones along the way matter.
mm-hmm.
Fantastic book.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, like, so it makes sense, right? But the Molly thing always kind of bugged me because they were like, yes, all the choices that you made along the way, but they were almost like non-choices, right? It's like, Molly can either get beheaded or she could be Harry's necromancer. So that's a good choice. Harry dies, so Leah can train her or she can die on the streets, I guess. So that's a good choice,
Well, that's not even a choice out of Leah because it's an obligation. She has to take over when Harry's
but that's
not
what
available.
I'm saying. Like,
Yeah.
for Leah it was an obligation, but Molly could have told Leah to fuck off, I guess. Was that her choice? Like, that's what I'm saying. It's like they make a big deal about all of Molly's choices, but at the end of the day, like, I mean, the only choice that Molly made that impacted the scale and direction of her life was whether or not to put the whammy on Nelson and his baby mama, right? Like that was, like, because there are so many things stacked against her choosing the other way at times that it's like, what else was she going to choose? Like, I mean, I guess she could have gone on the run from the wardens. Like we've seen a couple of other warlocks do that, but they were going to catch her and she wasn't going to make it, so that's why I'm just like, yes, you were groomed by Winter and of course you were the nearest vessel. It's like, what other choice was there really though? Like at the end of the day, like,
I mean, she was being prepared as a backup, whether she knew it or not, but it was like, it happened because Maeve chose to kill Lily and move Sarissa because Mab did want her daughter in that position and not to lose her to Summer as well as to Nemesis, the other one.
Right.
Didn't though Map say she was like contemplating Molly for summer, just in case or something?
Mab said a
Well, she
line
said-
that Molly would have been better suited for summer, but I disagree with that.
Right. Yeah, it is kind of interesting.
You disagreeing
because
with
it's like,
Map? Wait, hold on.
well, Molly's sensitive, right? And she's got a somewhat sunny disposition usually, but there, other than that, like there are loads of different reasons why she would go to Winter. And like we even see that in how she's behaving as the Winter Lady though, right? Like Molly does what she does as the Winter Lady because it has to be done, because she's seen that, she's had those conversations with Mab. But she also does what she does as the Winter Lady because she understands Winter. So she's got that level of empathy and that level of emotional understanding, that it's like, yeah, okay, I mean, they're trolls and they're ogres and they're whatever, but they're like there's a reason for it, right? They're not just mindless monsters. Like this is how they play out, right? And so like but that is theoretically a trait we would associate more with Summer, is the empathy and the warmth and the emotional understanding, whereas Winter is like, we kill and we fuck things, and not necessarily in that order, so
yeah, that's something that I enjoy in general, the complexity of Winter, that there, as you see with like Battlegrounds and the banner that Harry still has, he feels all of their fear and all of their pain, and he has to go the cold logic of Winter to dull it a little bit so he can continue functioning. But the pain that Mab feels is everyone's. Like she does have that empathy for all of her people,
right?
And then she has to hide it because it's too distracting. But that is the reason for fighting, is because of all of their pain and their fear. Is like they are the soldiers on the line to protect everyone's.
I don't know if hide it is the right word, but like for Mab, it's math, right? Like, great, you're scared and you're hurt and all of that stuff, but all that does, like, that's data. That's not that, because I mean, it's literally stoicism, right? Like it's a level and we could argue it and that sort of thing, but Mab understands the emotion and she understands the pain and she understands all of that. But you know what that says to Mab? It doesn't say, "Oh, you poor baby, let's coddle you and kiss your boo-boo." It says, "We need reinforcements." Mab is using it as data. Like, you're afraid because you're outnumbered, and you're wounded because you were outnumbered, and now I've got a gap in the line. And so for her, it's all cold logic and making those hard decisions in the moment. So yeah, like
it's definitely that. It's like, you're scared and you're hurt. Let's make you capable of handling your problem so that you're not scared and you won't be hurt again. Versus like the essence that we get out of Summer is the healing and the comforting and maybe some of the temper tantrums, but not to the same level of, you have to protect yourself and others against what's going to come and get you.
Yeah, I would use passion rather than tantrums, but whatever. So it's a much more grown-up word to use for that. But yeah, and I mean, Summer, like defending each other a little bit more probably than Winter would do. I don't know, but yeah, I was just like, she's not like, she doesn't take that and internalize it per se, and I don't think she takes it and she ignores it. She's just not acting on it the way that you would expect an otherwise empathetic being to operate on it, right?
She like is so far into the math, she's like robotically of like, the math equals out that these people need to die to save others, and that's more worth it. And that's it's a hard decision, and so she retreats into logic and math. It's painful on its own, even though it's protective. And that's what other people like Sarissa was serving the function of, keeping her close to humans and to not losing sight of all of that. And then it seems like also Harry is doing that as well.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because far enough down the logic chain, Mab could be like, oh yeah, it's absolutely Chicago's worth losing as long as we don't lose reality. One Chicago in a countless multiverse is not remotely important. But you'd have some other reason why, why it would be important. So
she's gonna go full Piggle Map.
I don't.
Rick
think
and
I
Morty
follow this.
reference, infinite multiverse,
Okay.
nothing matters.
Gotcha.
I've been rewatching Rick and Morty. Yeah, I'm over to catch up.
If it's one of the last couple seasons, I'm behind, but yeah. So
I just got to season 4. I don't remember how far I got the first time.
yeah.
It's a pretty fast rewatch, though.
Yeah, the episodes
I
are
bet.
pretty short.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, skipping ahead, still one of my favorite lines from Mab, especially, but possibly in the series, is like, "I knew I could take it. I did the math." So like, yeah,
Now, the best line she ever says is like, "Oh, you're gonna make some incomprehensible pop culture reference. We'll fight, and then we'll get over it and do what I say. So let's just skip ahead."
Right. Yeah, that's up there for sure. So, also trailing behind, no doubt, but I'd say in the top 3 easily is "What's that?" So, but anyway,
Yeah, you a Princess Bride reference?
yeah. So, Cold Days. He generally did a good job, other than that one question we've been waiting for him to ask since White Knight. So, at least.
If not earlier, because the Summer Night was like, what he was meant to be, even though we didn't get to hear the word Starborn for a long time.
Excuse me, what was I meant to be?
Yes, please tell me. What was this thing?
What am I?
What's all
supposed to
this
be?
fate garbage so I can ignore it and spit in its eye and all that stuff? So.
But he made a lot of choices, a lot of them good ones, some of them questionable, as Bob points out, of just like, you went to your friend's house and you trashed all of his things and attacked his girlfriend and you were secretive about it. Why? It's like, there might be a bad trend. But he has people who point it out for him. So that's the important thing.
True. I mean, imagine being on the winter side of things and a slippery slope. I mean, that slope is covered in ice. It's slippery all the way down.
Some motherfuckers always trying to ice skate uphill.
Nice.
There's always gonna be one. Every episode.
It's always going to be Justin. Right. Exactly. I mean, that's the big point of it. And one of the things that Batarang is trying to say is, what do you have? He has friends. Those friends are important. Right. Those friends hit him in the face when he's being an idiot and not asking for their help because they are there to give it. And the importance of being with people is they keep you grounded. Yeah, it has all the themes. It's done everything well. I love that book, but all the little choices, they don't kind of compare to the not asking the fucking question. But we can get to Skin Game and talk about the other friends that he's also being secretive to, that kind of sort of works out with Butters. Kind of. It's weird. It's a mixed bag.
It doesn't work out for Murphy so much, though.
Maybe.
Butters, Murphy, or are you guys trying to summon EG?
Yes. If you say it 2 more times, I think he appears. But
Butters is the best character. Butters is the best character. Butters is the best character. It's going to work. Is he watching?
I mean, we're about to find out.
That's terrible. Yeah. Right now, Murphy is holding a big fat L, right? She's got outs and stuff, maybe, but I'm just saying her L was given to her in this book, and it didn't get better. So
yeah, I mean, and honestly, if she made it through Skin Game not getting injured at all, that doesn't necessarily stop her from getting killed in Battleground, because it was Rudolph. It wasn't tied to her injury and her inability. It was Rudolph and trigger discipline.
Maybe, yes. And there's many other ways that she could have gotten killed along the way anyway that didn't involve Rudolph, but I don't know. Like, I mean, and really it's Murphy's choice in Skin Game as much as Butters' choice in Skin Game. That's the problem, So, but yes, generally a bad time for his Scoobies. And them making good choices. So,
and just a bad time in general. Like Harry had get on the boat or you're dying in 3 days from Mab. It's like he had the choice in the beginning. She cannot compel him to do the order.
Bad choice. Got his head bounced around an elevator. So
no, that was for talking back.
Well, yeah, a bad choice. So, You could have chose to
like
shut
Director
up.
Alex is a little too enthusiastic about the talking bag violence. I was talking bag, and he had that in common.
Yeah.
He was covered. God, he's got a mantle. He can take several dozen concussions in the span of 10 seconds and be more or less
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah, I mean, he's
Well,
already got
that depends if Butters' theory holds up or not. Where it's just he just ignores it, and it actually still damages him.
At that point, Bonnie's still in there, and she can put things back in order, clean up the mess.
Man, scrambled brain.
I don't. Yeah, I was going to
This
say,
goes here, and this goes here.
You ever seen a bird hatch? Humpty Dumpty doesn't get put back together afterwards. All right, so that's not how any of this works.
Yes. All right, choices. Let's see. So, because Mab cannot compel him, he does have to make the choice to take the job. But she did maneuver
what
everything
choice?
perfectly right. Like,
Right.
it's like Molly is not available until the last moment. You do not get to have help. Everything has been intercepted, and she is under a mile of ice. So they have to go do this thing, and then your head won't explode. She's still not telling what is the parasite that's going to kill him. And though we don't get to see it streamlined, Harry does make a really bright idea of, hey, I should go talk to the person who has all the answers. And he talks to Batarang/Kringle. And it sets up the Goodman Gray and all that. That was quite clever. It was a great choice to both realize, like, he has help out of people. He can do the setup before. And then the various choices that Mab and Marcone were pushing onto Nicodemus was also quite significant. But like, there is no one else as a culmination of his 2,000 years of chaos other than his daughter that has to be paid at the Blood Gate.
Right. Yeah. What a shame that those 2,000 years of generally being evil and a dick have caught up with you finally. So, yeah.
But because he has to be so secretive and he has all that information about Enderio being able to listen into shadows and he can't tell anything, and Butters is all suspicious of, like, the first thing you say when you wake up when you're from being unconscious is to pay a debt because you're a fairy now. We cannot trust you. You are scary. You've gone bad, just like Pet Sematary.
It's not a bad logic. He is probably being influenced.
Right. It isn't bad logic on Butters' part. He's right to be suspicious, but he's completely discounting, as Murphy puts it. We've seen him through all of these things. You can have a little bit of faith. Just a little bit.
I think Murphy is right here, and she's also gone through what shall we say? Like she did this in book 2 or something, right? And learned.
Yeah. Yes.
So. That's, to me, that's not all of it though. Like, Murphy, especially in Cold Days, almost becomes like destructively bad the other direction though, right? So having Murphy be the dichotomy with Butters is not the like slam dunk case that you want it to be, because to me, Murphy like made tons of reckless decisions starting in Cold Days, and she basically decided, you know what, I'm gonna hitch my horse to Harry Dresden, and we're just gonna on until hell. And you see that is no clearer than it is in Cold Days, and it doesn't go away. It doesn't get better than that. And so, like, I think for her, like, the grief of losing him and then getting him back just kind of galvanized her feelings on the case, because you see her do loads of stuff starting, at least from the encounter with the Red Cap in the gardens and whatever. It's like, she's the one that's there to save Dresden and whatever. She's riding around on her motorcycle the whole time. She's ride or die with Harry Dresden now. She's not making better decisions than Butters. For our purposes, she's making the right decision, because whatever Harry needs to get help and whatever. But what you need is somebody like Michael. Like, Michael is the one making the right decision for the right reason. Butters is making a bad decision for a bad reason, and Murphy is making a right decision for a bad reason. Because Michael's going to sit there and be like, you're being an idiot. I still love you, but you need to hear this, Whereas Murphy is like, everybody shut up or I'll cut you. We're listening to Dresden, She's not making good choices either. Like, let's just clarify that.
You're right. And as she did explicitly say in Cold Days, that she's going to be with Harry until the end of the world, or until she can no longer be. Like, even as bad as he's possibly going to be, he's quite monstrous in Cold Days because he's trying to get a handle on everything. And she was there for him, and she was going to stay. So as much as blinded by that as she is, her argument is not wrong just for that. But Butters is discounting it
Right.
out of fear, suspicion. And if Michael was in the position of Butters, of knowing that Harry is keeping a lot of secrets, possibly suspiciously, possibly affected and no longer fully human, he would still not have put a bug on Harry to follow him out. Because, like, as you saw in like a Small Favor, when Mab messed with his brain and took away his blasting rod, and like they could all tell that something was wrong. All they did was ask the question of, where is your blasting rod, to actually get the thing. They did not start following him, of like being suspicious. They did not mistreat him in any way. Butters mistreated him.
Right. No,
That's
for
also
sure.
true.
Like Michael's generally beyond reproach, for stuff like that. But like, it's because he's above board all the time. Like, if he's got a concern, he will confront Harry with it. But even still, like, fine, the blasting rod, what a great moment. He held a fucking coin. Okay, and Michael still trusted him.
He's got a denarian, and
yeah.
I mean, he'll tell me when he's ready.
Yeah, right. He will make the right choices. Harry, like, Michael's faith is unshakable in Harry and God. Like, there are only two things that Michael believes in: Harry Dresden and Jesus Christ. Because it's literally unshakable that when Harry was a card-carrying member of the bad guys that Michael spent his entire life fighting, he still didn't lose the faith and got rewarded for that. So yes, Michael is not going to bug him. Michael would be, he would be the voice of reason, just be like, Harry has his reasons, let him come to us when he's ready, type of thing.
Right. To this point, yes, Harry did start acting strangely in Cold Days. He did break into the place, break a bunch of computers, and attack Andy and all that. But after that, in that Cold Days book, Butters got to see what and why. And he got to understand. He just says, like, oh, it was a gigantic mess, but it was fine. It's for a good reason. And so it's fighting the cause and all those good things. Mm-hmm. But then he gets it the next book. And just like, he did a bad thing before for a good reason. It's just like, baby, don't put a bug on him. It's the biggest thing. Don't bug him.
Right.
I mean, following him would have been fine, but because the bug is traceable is the issue.
Was it though? Because I thought he literally got caught at the window. Like, I thought that was the problem.
Because they were all like acting weird and scratching. It's like they could tell that they're being watched, but they didn't know it until they started paying attention. Right. And then there's a magical thing on them in his cast. And that was what clued them in on whatever was going wrong. And then they chased him down. It wasn't.
I think
just
Harry
like he
could
was
have done
outside.
that differently. The whole breaking in with Butters and everything. He could have done that differently. He could have just.
Oh yeah.
Cast a spell, or he must have like a spell that can make him tell Butters in private, I need to make it look like working with me.
The note.
Yeah, the problem is Harry's really bad at magic, especially subtle magic, and there's loads of people better than him. So to think that he could do something untraceable than that, like, it's called a dead drop for starters. Like, he could have just set up a dead drop and then done a note or passed word through somebody else that he trusted. Sure. Yeah, those were generally stupid. I mean, what was his justification again? Wasn't it like, oh, I needed to make a big mess because I've got to look like the bad guy, or whatever?
Yes, he has to look like the bad guy so that no one goes after Butters and Andy to hurt them for information on him, because if he broke in, that means that he's not their ally and therefore they're not a target, even though that didn't work. And Andy got kidnapped anyway. Right.
I mean, nobody said Harry Dresden was smart. He makes bad choices all the time, but yeah, in this case, like, so I think everybody has a tough time with like Butters in this book for the same reason, but more so that they have a problem with Ramirez in the next books, because like we see Dresden from Dresden's perspective, and these guys lost that faith, right? They betrayed Harry Dresden because they didn't keep the friendship, and they didn't trust him enough to blah blah blah. And it's like, man, look at it from the outside perspective, right? Like, he's absolutely compromised. His fucking his godfather, his grandfather doesn't trust him because he's compromised, my dudes. And yeah, that hurts me because Ebenezer is like one of my favorite characters, if not my favorite character. So I get it. It hurts my feelings a little bit and whatever. It sucks that he's not trusted by his people. But how many people you seen run around with the white court and not be compromised? Let's just start with that. It makes all the fucking sense in the world. How many people you see working with the Winter Court and not be compromised? So yeah, they're like, no, yes, yeah. I mean, so, but in any case, like, it makes all the sense in the world. And from Butters' perspective, it's twice as bad because Butters has got no power, at least until like this book, right? He's got nothing. He's the little guy. He's the prey in all of this. Whatever happens, Butters isn't changing the situation and making it better. He's going to get stepped on or eaten. That's Butters' position in this food chain. And so he's absolutely got every reason to be skittish, regardless of trust and common history and all of that other stuff. So yeah, I mean, it sucks, but it's totally understandable to me. Does he take it too far with the whole bug thing and the following and shit? Yeah, like, get your shit out of the line of fire. Like, you're just asking to get caught. Like, at no point
actually,
were you.
I just remembered, it's not only the bug, which was bad because then he got caught. He also then, as he was running away, made the choice to go to the Carpenter house because he knew that a sword was there. I mean, I get it, running towards the biggest safety beacon ever, but it brings threat to the Carpenters.
There are a lot of kids there, to be honest. It is kind of a dick move.
Yeah.
It's, again, so talking about, cowards and that sort of thing, Butters and Mortimer are the biggest cowards in the books, right? So he went to the only place he thought he would be safe, and he was right. And yeah, like, he threatened the kids and all of that stuff. Again, not great decision making. What exactly were his choices? Like, he's already caught. He's already gonna
suffer the consequences like a man.
Yeah, so die.
Get around to Marcones.
Yep.
Yeah, mostly just gonna die then. Like, yeah, I mean, that yeah, it sucks, and you're absolutely right. He put the kids in danger and all of that stuff, but he also, maybe that was a demonstration of his faith that, Michael was going to be able to protect it and handle it and that sort of thing, which he did with the help of Uriel. So he got more help than he expected and counted on. But
and that's touching on the thing of, like, not only was this a giant gambit of Mab and Marcones of hurting Nicodemus in as much way as it possibly could, but it was also a gambit of Uriel's to save what their tongueless faces are. I forgot the.
Nicodemus's cult. I don't know if they have a name.
They had a name. I just don't remember. But Uriel made a lot of bets as well, and when he does that, it's a question of, like, how many of these choices are real choices, because he's a freaking archangel that can manipulate really small things of, like, of course you should go to the Carpenter house, and of course I'm going to help Michael walk out that gate, and setting it up in exactly the correct way, leaving free will, but also ensuring that it's going to do what he wants it to. It's an odd question. And I mean, and you can see that out of Uriel was quite satisfied with Butters as been getting the lightsaber sword of faith.
Mm-hmm.
But that also did require for Murphy to make the wrong choice and try to strike Nicodemus out of judgment.
Because otherwise it's not a lightsaber doing the dick move choice of going there in the first place. And like, all these events had to happen in this order for this to, and all the infinite realities. Uriel is the one Uriel, so there's a lot of realities where that didn't happen, I guess.
Well, yeah,
This week.
at least one.
Maybe
you know,
Uriel's Rick. Nothing matters.
More like everything
No,
matters.
right. I don't know about all that, but yeah, I mean, I think Murphy's choice from Uriel's perspective is probably totally regrettable, but you know, like it worked out. You know, Uriel's definitely going to be the guy who sees the silver lining of every cloud. All right, like out of anybody in the series, but
In his giant jumbo
you
jet.
know, yeah, like you know. Uriel, though, is probably because he knows literally everything about what's going on with the situation, that sort of thing. It's like, yeah, I mean, okay, so ideally breaking the blade wasn't the best thing, but the blade wasn't the powerful part. You know, so all Nicodemus did was send a message. He didn't unmake the thing. You know, that would have been way worse at Bianca's, for example, than it was you know, and we didn't see Uriel at Bianca's, so you know, I don't think he was there because he was worried.
And then reforged, right? Isn't that the wording he uses?
Well, I mean, maybe, but like I think the way that we understand them is that the nails are worked into the hilt, you know,
Yeah.
that, or you know, so it's just like, yeah, okay, you broke a bunch of steel, bummer, you know, yeah, and the swords have been remade multiple times, but
Mm-hmm. I mean,
But
Sonya
yeah.
says that he got his sword from Michael the Archangel
right.
or an alien, something.
I mean, as the angels are messengers originally, right? You know, maybe you know Michael's like, well, I'm running around delivering packages. I guess I can take the sword. Don't read too much into it. It's not like Michael was like, boom, forged a sword. Here you go. Merry Christmas. Try not to cut yourself with it. You know. But
Got one of my trap siblings inside. Here you go.
yeah, right. Yeah. Talk about patience, man. Just sitting there inside a sword all the time, watching people be stupid around you all the time. Like
we're sitting in a bucket with umbrellas, just like waiting. So can you
right.
please do something?
Now,
like when you finally get in the hands of someone, and you get to smack talk someone for the first time in 1,000 years, and you're just like, oh, I really got to pick my words now.
Yeah, right. I've been waiting for this for a long time. To be fair, at least when he was in the umbrella rack, like he had a friend for a while, right? You know, so there was two of them. You know,
So like,
see,
so
just
yeah,
that'd
so
be a
do you think-
lesson.
Do you think like Mouse is ever gonna realize that he's stronger than the cat? Yeah, I mean, I think he knows. You think so? Yeah, I think he's just being polite. Oh yeah, probably.
Right.
I wonder if Mouse talks to them, the swords.
Right.
I assume Mouse
Hello,
can talk
big
to
brother.
everybody.
Hello, big brother. Come on. Hey, Mouse.
Dresden brings him home, puts him in the umbrella stand. Mouse looks at the swords, looks at Dresden like, what? Like, do you not realize? Are you kidding me right now? You know, like Dresden's like, what? Go eat your dinner. Quit bugging me.
I think we should talk a little bit more about Murphy's choice, even though we're at time. Because it was another one of those things of she did have a choice, but it was also an impossible one because either she kills Nicodemus with judgment or she has to let him go because he gave up his coin for 30 seconds.
It's a classic gambit, right? And it was a role-playing game, right? But like our party got faced with something along those lines once as well, right? And I was the ranger in the situation, and it's a great, fantastic old role-playing story. But long story short, we're like fighting Vecna, you know, like the Vecna. A lot more people know about it these days, but you know, he's on his way to be an archlich. He's gonna ascend is kind of the story point we're at. And we capture him in a bottle because our cleric, played by my, you know, young teenage brother, had a flash of inspiration, got him stuck in a bottle basically. And we have two paladins in the party. So he starts begging for forgiveness. And luckily I was the chaotic good guy that could say, oh, hell no. We're absolutely going to kill this fool, right? And you just got to do it the right way. Like her problem was like she was trying to use the Holy Avenger to kill the guy asking for forgiveness. She could have arrested him. She could have pulled a sidearm and shot him. she could have done so many different things, but she decided to attack him with the sword, which he's got 2,000 years more experience fighting against and wielding than she does.
And she won the skirmish.
Right. Fine. But it's obviously a trap. Like, you know, like I don't give her a lot of wiggle room for this, right? It all works out and whatever. It's an amazing bit of storytelling. It's 100% classic with the whole, like, you know, the righteous do-gooders and the dark evil bad guy, and how he's finally begging for forgiveness because of course it's a ploy, but you have to take it seriously because you're the good guys. It is absolutely black and white, mustache twirling evil, like the right move for him to pull in that moment. But she's apparently chaotic good, and so is Harry Dresden, but you didn't have to be chaotic stupid. You could have done a number of other things in that moment. You're a cop. You know how to pull a weapon off a suspect, kick him in the face, and handcuff him. I don't know. Like, I got to go reread the scene right now, but those are the things that come to mind in the moment. Is like, you had a bunch of options that didn't involve trying to stab him with like one of the worst attacks of all time, because, you know, he basically like rolls out of the way and like breaks the sword, right? You know, it's just like, there were so many other things you could have done. It's a classic, you know, Thanos, you should have aimed for the head moment, right? It's like, well, obviously you should have gone for his head. What were you thinking? You know, like, chop off his arm, you know.
That Murphy, the person who's very well armed generally and has guns in her ankles, like, didn't have another weapon available except for the one sword that she was hiding in a bazooka, which was still fun.
Right.
Whoops.
Did you refresh or click back or something?
My friend linked me something. I clicked it and wanted to close it, and then I closed everything.
Oh,
nice. Classic. But yeah, so yeah, Murphy made a lot of bad decisions, and it wasn't just her like gonna kill him in vengeance type of thing. Like, I don't even necessarily disagree with her on that. Like, you know, it's a classic. Another good example, episode 3, Star Wars. He's too dangerous to be left alive. Okay, fine, don't be an idiot about it. You know, like, there are ways to make sure that he's not a threat that don't also require breaking the sword and a bunch of other stuff, you know. That's my quibble with it, is that I feel like, you know, in the moment she chose poorly, obviously. But it was the master stroke from Nicodemus, because he's almost going to win in every kind of situation as well with that, right? Because you're going to doubt yourself. That gives him an opening. You're going to reset the fight. That gives him an opening. Like, there's no point where he doesn't wind up with the upper hand on this. So, you know, you definitely need to be like, okay, how's he getting out of this? That's where you should have switched your train of thought. Not like, yes, Nicodemus, after 2,000 years, we've finally broken through. It was me, the little blonde girl, who defeated you in single combat. And of course, you will reform your evil and scummy ways. Oh, hell no. What's your trick? You know, you should have immediately been thinking, like, does he got a ankle holster? Like, is he waiting for his dudes to come around the corner in a van and start blasting the place? Like, what's the next play? You know, so that's where the underestimation comes in, and she made bad choices, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah. Well, she's always had a judgmental streak. But
okay. Yeah.
And it's a difficult thing. Of all of the ways that we are second guessing her, it's like we can think of all the ways that she could have done it, that in that moment of 3 seconds, can you think of all of those options? Probably not. But
she's a cop. She's trained to make those decisions. She's trained to deal with a suspect that she knows is dangerous, regardless of if he put his weapon down. You know, like, she fucking practices Aikido. Just because he's put his weapon down doesn't mean that he's not going to try and grab her and put her in a headlock, you know, or he's not going to try and break her leg, because, you know, spoilers, that happens. Like, yeah, she absolutely should have been thinking, that's one threat, but he's probably got about 4 or 5 others. And that's not even counting the fact that he's literally also just got, you know, crazy magic powers as far as she knows, you know. Sure, he gave up the coin, but is that his only trick? Sure, he dropped his sword, but is that his only weapon? Hell no. She knows better than that, or she should have.
I mean, he's still wearing the rope that Harry almost killed him with. It's a weapon.
I mean,
she could have grabbed that and strangled him. But again, we're second guessing.
Harry doesn't.
We were not in a moment.
Yeah, Harry
takes that off. I'm pretty sure
because he's an idiot. But did he in that moment? Yeah. He's like, I've been choked by this, so that's goodbye. But so again, shoot the bastard. So
guns are
neutral. If you're gonna throw it all away anyway, pull that sig that you're so proud of, Now, and to be fair, just so we're clear, I'm not saying that's the good decision. I'm saying that's the right decision, because that's absolutely executing in cold blood and an evil move right there, right? So let's just clarify that right now too. Yeah. That's an evil move, but that's the kind of thing that the chaotic good guys would do. The ends justifies the means, right? That's, like there's a line there, and then you cross over and then you become mustache twirling chaotic evil. But like, that's the, I'm killing him to stop him from hurting more people, type of thing. If she felt that strongly about it, if she wanted to go lawful good, she would have fucking hooked him up in handcuffs. And she's absolutely capable of doing that theoretically, because she's a cop. That's her every day.
She's no cop anymore. That would be a citizen's arrest, but blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. But I mean, really, she's got a fucking bazooka case. She doesn't have handcuffs. Come on.
I'll shut up. So this still does kind of go back to what plan does Uriel have? Because if it had to happen in that way for Butters to get a lightsaber, the lightsaber that goes to his religion of Star Wars. And then they had to get into the vault.
Okay, but no.
Well, Uriel makes a comment because Butters says there is no try. It's like he had faith in the story, and that was good enough.
Okay, fine.
I'm just going off of what Uriel said, but Uriel needed Harry and all the Scoobies and gang to get into the vault so that they can get all of the artifacts, which were important. It's an armory. It's time for those things to be released. Hades knew and was in on the plan. It's like, okay, yeah, if you can make it out, it's yours. And so they didn't get the Grail, but they got all of the other things. And that Spear of Destiny was super important in the next book. So it's like that needed to happen for everything else. And Uriel knowing everything's going to, like, some of this, absolutely, people can be making different choices. But if it didn't happen in this specific way with all of these choices, the cumulative effect would be we get a very, very different story. And maybe no Spear of Destiny when the Titan comes around.
Right. I mean, in the meta sense of, like, what was Murphy going to do in Hades' vault? What exactly help was she going to be there? I mean, maybe she had the sword. Maybe she would have just been a Knight of the Cross, but she wouldn't have had the grace. So would she have just died later anyway? Because like the grace probably was like a non-trivial amount of help, for Michael, not just the free walking and all of that stuff. Like, we clearly see him like invoke all manner of scripture and prayer and stuff in the vault that he didn't do nearly as much in other places, right? It's like he always used In Nomine Dei and a few other things, but he was practically in Latin mode when he was fighting Nicodemus in the vault, right? Like everything was coming out, as some scripture or prayer or whatever in Latin. But so it's like, yeah, I mean, maybe, but again, Uriel's kind of bound to the decisions. Like, I'd be like, to me, it's more of a Uriel thing. He would have been fine with Murphy besting Nicodemus there and walking off with the sword or whatever. But yeah, like, I mean, I guess they needed Nicodemus still to get him to the vault, and they needed to get the things. And
Nicodemus had to help get them in, and Deidre had to die to spread the Gate of Blood for Harry to get all of those armaments. It has to happen in that specific way, even though we're going to say she could have done something differently.
Boo.
See, this is where, like, the interference of an archangel does kind of change the nature of choices.
Right.
as much as he
Yeah.
tries to say, it's like, oh no, it's your free will, your choices that made everything happen. It's like, yeah, I don't know, he's rigging the game
Right.
softly.
Well, and that's where, like, to me, it muddies the waters, even with the archangels, because he's clearly got choices. If he didn't, he couldn't give you his grace. Like, he makes it very clear that that's his choice, and if you fall with his grace, he falls because he made a bad choice. Like, so yeah, the whole like free will and where that, like, is it a spectrum versus is it a black and white kind of line? Like, that's this book is what clouds all of that, especially. But like, to me, it's like it's the whole mythology anyway. Like, like, in order to fall, you must have free will. So everything aside from that is an argument, right? Like, we had angels at least make 3 kinds of choices, according to Apocrypha and other mythologies and stuff like that. So it's like, bro is making choices. You can argue how much his hands are tied or whatever all day, but yeah. And he very likely maneuvered everything, but he's playing chess against Nicodemus as well, ultimately, right? And fate and a few other things, because Nicodemus had to chase Butters to Michael's house. Michael had to come out, and all of those things had to happen in order for Uriel to be like, oh, P.S., before you go outside, why don't you take this, and
Here's
give
a little
him
grace for you.
So, right.
Here's a little lightsaber. He's getting all up in the business in this one.
And for all of that maneuvering, it seems to me that Murphy did get a very bad deal. Maybe maybe she deserved it, but also she was maneuvered by people who handle cosmic powers all the time.
Mhm.
And Mr. Sunshine has lunch with Batarang once a year. Maybe he's trying to make a payment at some point and give her something back.
I mean, honestly, I think it's kind of like Mab, right? It's contingencies and plans. So he was like, okay, Butters can be lightsaber. That's cool. Murphy can choose and then become a fool by not trying to kill him or something like that.
Mm-hmm. But everything worked out
Yeah.
as Uriel wanted. The Squires, that's the name. The Squires were saved. Butters got his lightsaber. Nicodemus has been run out, and his daughter's dead. And all of the things all of these good things happened as to Uriel and other people's plans. And Murphy got quite brutally injured. And maybe he's going to try to pay her back. The nature of debt is really important in this universe.
Yeah, I mean, some payment. P.S. The last time you were alive, you got shot in the neck by that junior kid that you used to have kicking around. It's been 200 years and everybody that you know has died. But you didn't. You could have been on the fast track to heaven, but instead you've been kicking around Valhalla for the last 200 years. So,
sounds like a great time.
Thank me anytime. You could just tell me how grateful you are. I'm listening. I don't think that's how that's going down. So,
and I think Batarang probably made the choice of taking her, but maybe Uriel can argue for her side to be let out earlier.
Yeah, okay, maybe, but
in their once a year lunches.
See, but so the difference is it'd be more like a jailbreak, I think. Well, because it's like, I don't think Uriel can just put in a good word. Like, the way that it seemed to be was that Odin is bound by certain things. Like, he can only do this because the rules, like, there's a loophole, but the loophole is like everybody else you've ever known needs to be also dead, which also is a little bit of a wrinkle when you've got a wizard kicking it around, right? So either wizards are the loophole or she's got to wait until even Dresden's gone. So maybe Uriel does like maybe he can do an exchange. I don't know. How does that work with the celestial powers? I wouldn't say prison break, doesn't quite fit it, but
a prisoner swap.
Something. But like, I don't know that Vadarung can do it, if that makes sense. I don't know that Odin can be like, yes, I'm going to let you out 200 years early for good behavior. Like, that's literally not within his power. That's why he has to wait the 200 years or whatever in the first place, so. But
right. I mean, it could be a swap so that she comes back as an archangel instead of a Valkyrie. Close enough anyway, but Ragnarok is coming.
He he just shows up as Rashid and be like, "Ah, yes, I'm here to get Murphy, thanks." And then Vatarung's like, "Oh, you sly bastard, darn, you caught me." And then he has to hand her over to himself, and then, no, okay,
It's Ragnarok is coming, and we know that. And maybe she can be early on the side of being let out. What?
I was trying to figure out Fenrir and like, didn't she already have something to do with that? But my brain is trying to connect two dots that I don't think are connected or connecting.
Fenrir's wolf, the giant wolf that will kill Odin.
Yeah.
And she's afraid of dogs. It's most of the connections I can see.
Is that?
Yeah, she's afraid of big dogs. Mouse is the only one that she likes that's big.
Oof.
That's a small person thing. So yeah.
Also, maybe the werewolf that killed her partner.
There we go. The werewolves, obviously. Yeah. Because she did the whole silver bullet thing. Okay. Yeah. That works. I don't think that's what I was thinking, but that does still fit that hole. So yeah.
All right. I think we've talked ourselves into knots. We will
What else?
Tangents. What's that?
I know we got 2 whole books to cover next episode, so And he made a lot of stupid decisions. I think that's what's going to carry us through that hour. Is like he did really good for several books, and then boy did he get stupid fast. So
yeah, he did. That'll be fun to second guess him on all of those. And that'll be in a couple weeks. And next week we're doing what? A no topic? We don't have a topic set for while we weren't recording. Okay. Yeah, we've got other homework to do for the week after that. And then we'll get Andreas to do his cooking show.
I'm making no promises.
Do it. We want to judge you. Making filler. We've got the name already.
You're cooking all the time anyway. You just got to get a camera in there, man. So
you have a phone.
Yeah.
This all works out.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's it. Check out our end of year Secret Santa thing because that was a lot of fun last week.